Jessica Lee looked like any ordinary passenger as she boarded Flight 732 from Chicago to Orlando. She wore simple jeans and a comfortable sweater, carrying just a small bag and a paperback novel. At 35, she had an unremarkable appearance that made her blend in perfectly with the other travelers. No one would guess that she was actually a commercial airline pilot with over 15 years of flying experience. Before watching the full story, comment below from where you're watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. As she walked down the aisle to find her seat in aisle 8, other passengers barely noticed her. The flight attendants smiled politely as they helped people store their luggage overhead. A businessman in the front was already typing on his laptop. A young mother was trying to calm her crying baby. An elderly couple was discussing their vacation plans. To everyone around her, Jessica appeared to be just another tired passenger heading home or traveling for business. Jessica settled into her middle seat and pulled out her book. She had specifically chosen not to wear anything that would identify her as a pilot. No uniform, no aviation magazines, no flight bag with airline logos. She was traveling on her day off and wanted nothing more than a sleep during the 4-hour flight. She had been working long hours recently, flying international routes, and this personal trip to visit her sister and Chloe was her first real break in months. The flight attendant, Maria, walked by during the safety demonstration. She noticed Jessica had already buckled her seatbelt and was reading quietly. Maria assumed she was probably a teacher or office worker, maybe a mother traveling alone. There's nothing about Jessica that suggested she had any special skills or knowledge about aviation. She looked tired, like someone who just wanted to rest during the flight. As the plane taxied to the runway, Jessica closed her book and put on her eye mask. She had flown this route many times as a pilot, but today she was determined to be just a passenger. She adjusted her seat back slightly and closed her eyes. The familiar sounds of the engine starting up were comforting to her, though the other passengers had no idea. She could identify every sound the aircraft was making. Captain Miller, a veteran pilot with 25 years of experience, was in the cockpit with his co-pilot, First Officer David. They completed their pre-flight checks and received clearance for takeoff. It was a routine flight with clear weather expected all the way to Orlando. The passenger list showed 187 people on board, including crew members. Neither pilot had any idea that one of their passengers was also a qualified commercial pilot. The takeoff was smooth and within minutes. Flight 732 was climbing to its cruising altitude of 37,000 feet. Jessica was already fast asleep in aisle 8, her head resting against the small airplane pillow. The passenger next to her, a college student named Alex, was listening to music with his headphones. The businessman in the front continued working on his computer. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Flight attendant Maria began the beverage service about an hour into the flight. She quietly moved past Jessica's row, noticing the woman was sleeping peacefully. Maria had been working flights for 8 years and had developed a good sense about passengers. Jessica seemed like a quiet, professional woman, maybe someone who worked in an office or taught school. She definitely didn't look like the type of person who would cause any trouble during the flight. 2 hours into the flight, while Jessica continued sleeping, something went wrong in the cockpit. Captain Miller suddenly felt dizzy and nauseous. He had been feeling slightly unwell since before takeoff, but now the symptoms were getting much worse. He tried to focus on the instrument panel, but his vision was becoming blurry. He realized he might have food poisoning from something he ate at the airport. "David, I don't feel good," Captain Miller told his co-pilot. "I think I need to step away for a minute." First Officer David looked concerned. "What's wrong?" "I'm really dizzy and sick to my stomach." "I think it might be food poisoning," the captain replied, holding his head in his hands. Within minutes, Captain Miller was feeling much worse. He was sweating heavily and could barely stay focused. First Officer David realized this was becoming a serious situation. As the co-pilot, he was fully qualified to fly the plane, but airline rules required 2 pilots in the cockpit at all times during flight. They needed to find a solution quickly. Captain Miller tried to continue, but suddenly he passed out completely. First Officer David immediately called the head flight attendant over the intercom. Maria, I need you in the cockpit right away. We have an emergency situation. Maria rushed to the cockpit and found Captain Miller unconscious in his seat. First Officer David was now flying the plane alone, which was against rules and potentially dangerous if anything else went wrong. They needed another qualified pilot immediately.